Hey, everybody, welcome back to Live, Laugh, and Learn in Real Estate. We weren't here last week. I was being a little bit sick. But this episode, we just want to talk a little bit about the feedback that we've gotten since we started this podcast. We're only 2 episodes in, but I'm very grateful for the feedback that we have received. A lot of it's been positive, especially that last episode talking a little bit about the home buying process. So I think this time, myself and Patty, we're going to do it in English because, there's a struggle reading the subtitles because I know I talk a little bit fast, especially when I'm nervous.
And I think that was part of the feedback that they want, that a lot of people are also English speaking and aren't catching on with the whole Spanish. So we're gonna try English today. We are bilingual. We both speak Spanish and English, so I think we should be okay.
No, yeah. And this is, something that we're learning. Like, as we've said before, this podcast is something new to us both. So we're just trying to, do things as we go on. The feedback, it helps definitely because it lets us know, what it is that we're doing right and what may or may not need to be fixed. So that's a little bit of the feedback that we've been getting. I know Patty's been getting like some similar stuff, but even so, the subtitles will still be in Spanish for those so they can follow along with us.
Yeah. No. And we're really appreciative. So if you're watching us, if you're liking, commenting, if you call us or messages and you want to just give us feedback, like we're open to all that. So, and like I said, we're grateful that you are watching. And like I always say, I'm not perfect with the whole podcast thing, but we're going with it and rolling with it, and we're actually really enjoying it. And we love, like we said, we love giving you the information and at least giving you a little bit of what we know and what we've experienced, while we've been in the business.
Mm-hmm. So this one, we're going to talk a little bit about the home selling process, what that kind of looks like. But that's going to be, something fairly quick because it's more of a realtor thing. Obviously, Patty does have some experience too because, sometimes clients need to sell their home in order to purchase. So she does know as well. So if you guys have questions too, she's always there to answer them. So it's just going to be a quick, little 5 steps, what you need to do, to sell your home.
So what are the steps, Monica, to sell your home? If somebody reaches out and says, "Hey, Monica, I wanna sell my house. What do I need to do?"
So the first thing you do is you want to contact a real estate profession, right? Because you want to be able to, sell your home at the market value that it's worth. So for me, the first step is, setting up a seller consultation. And there we're going to go through, all the steps. But the first one is, understanding the market. And that's understanding how much your home is worth in today's market. So when we do that consult, I will already have the comps in that area. We'll talk a little bit about price and what's the recommended price of the market to sell your home at. And then from there, you will agree on a purchase price. And then from there, we'll talk about a seller net sheet. And that's going to be all the fees as a seller that are included that you may or may not have to pay for. Because again, we talk a lot last episode about, closing costs for buyers and how sellers, close them. So when a seller has that net sheet, I always put there what is minimum of how much they may or may not have to pay. Because again, everything's negotiable. Everything depends on your realtor.
So what are things that as a seller I would be possibly paying for when I'm selling my house?
So you'll pay for title fees because, they also will, help with the documentation, transferring the name, realtor fees. So not only is it the seller's fees, but the buyer's as well. And again, all of that's, you're going to negotiate with your listing agent and then also with the buyer's agent when the time comes for an offer. And then sometimes the buyer's closing fees. And that can be anywhere from 1% up to 6%, depending on what it is that they need. And also, how well the listing agent can negotiate on your behalf.
Very well, very well. Okay. And then I know you have other little tips and stuff about, what would help and what's needed when you want to actually prep your house. Because a lot of people, I feel like they think they need to have the house all perfect and looking pretty and, super clean. But, there's a lot of things I'm assuming that you don't really have to do if you want to sell your house. But I don't know. What do you have for us for that?
So the main thing is like try and declutter, just for, the pictures, because pictures are everything. Those pictures are the first presentation that you're giving to home buyers of what the home looks like. And depending on buyers, sometimes, if they see a lot of clutter and things like that, they might not want to look at the home just because, there's just stuff everywhere. But curb appeal is also important, like the outside. I know a lot of people don't think about it, but that first picture that they see is going to be of the outside of the home, so try and like keep it nice and clean and tidy for pictures and also for the duration of the home buying process. Me, when I take my buyers to see a home, I tell them don't look at, the clutter or anything like that, because people still live in their homes when they try to sell them. Look at the layout. Look at if that kitchen is what you want. Look if that's enough space in the living room, if the rooms are big enough, if the back patio is what you're looking for, because no house is perfect. Every home, because you as a buyer already envision what you're going to do to it and what you're going to change.
Okay. So then it's okay that it's still lived in. Like it won't be an issue or anything like that. Like it's okay.
No, yeah, it's okay. And that's one of the main questions, like I even get as a buyer's agent, right? Is like, oh, somebody's living there, so when do they have to leave? So once you go under contract, they normally leave within 25 to 29 days, depending on on their situation. And again, what's agreed upon in that contract and when they have to be out. But once you're under contract, they should already start, packing up and getting ready to vacate the premises.
Okay. And then I think this one's a big, but I don't know if it's a problem or topic, or I think just of pricing the house. Like I think a lot of the times we get attached, and sometimes I feel like we want the most that we can get out of our house. So how do you go about that? Like pricing the house, like what amount you're going to sell it for?
So that's why the comps are very important. Again, we work with sellers. I have worked with sellers that want a certain price for the house. But my job is to, give you the facts and tell you like, hey, this is what I believe is a good price to sell it for. It's going to go very quickly. And I have proven that, and within my history. And other times when they're overpriced, they sit on the market. And they sit on the market because it's not what the home is valued at. And one of the things I tell them too, the biggest thing is when appraisal comes in for the buyers, right? If it comes in lower, that can, stop the process, the contract can be voided. So we want to avoid things like that. But also it's my job to make sure that I'm getting you the most money possible. But we list it at the end of the day of what the seller wants, because the seller makes that decision. We're here to guide and help them. But, for me personally, at the same time, if you overprice it and you're like, well, white people ain't seeing my house, I'm going to tell you it's because it's overpriced, like you told you.
Yeah. And usually what we see when we're on the buyer's side, we're helping the buyer purchase the house, let's say, and the house is overpriced. Then what happens is sometimes that they lower, right? They keep lowering. So then what happens with the offers is that sometimes they see an opportunity to be able to ask for more closing costs. So as a seller, you want to make sure that you're pricing the house correctly, because then you don't want to be in a position of like, well, look, the buyer agent's looking at your house and it's priced lower. So then they're going to try to get more versus where if it would have been priced correctly from the beginning, then you probably would have been able to get more out of your house is what I'm.
Yeah, exactly. I call it blood in the water, shark, right? Because as soon as they start doing those price reductions, there's blood in the water. You know that at that point they know that they needed to lower their price, and now they're even more willing, to help out, especially if you have a client that needs, 4.5% to 6% for DPA. So they're going to be a little bit more leniency, because sometimes too they have a house that they're purchasing that they need to sell their home in order to get it. And I'm not saying that we take advantage, but if a client is needing that and we see that, I will try my best to take advantage. But also too, again, this is home selling. So on the seller side, even though we're lowering, I can be like, yeah, but we did that 10,000 price reduction, still willing to help with some of those closing costs, the best that we can. And negotiating fees and commissions as well, try to save them, that little bit of money.
So, okay. So then how do you determine, I guess, what price you're going to sell that house at? Like, what do you look at? Like, how do you know, oh, this is the price that I recommend to sell your home for?
So there's a lot of different like apps and technology that you can use. So I do everything, manually. So like let's say your house is 123 Elm Street. So from there, I'm gonna go out a mile and I'm gonna look for similar homes that have sold in the past 3 months that have the same square footage, at least the same minimum bedrooms that your house has, same kind of community, whether it's HOA or not. And then based off of there, I'm going to compare. I'm going to pull the ones that are very similar and most recent. And then I'm going to get a medium of what I think that house, what your house could sell for.
Okay. Okay. So you're not just saying, oh, out of the blue, this is the price. Like you guys actually like look at what prices in the area have sold for, and it's recent, like not like from last year, because like the market changes all the time. So then, okay, very well.
No, right. Because the market changes daily. I believe one time we were doing comps, we had one house that sold like 6 months before for like 50,000 more. But then, that same week, a house sold, but for 50,000 less. So that effectuates the comps because now same thing. That's when an appraiser looks at when they come into appraise your home. They're looking at comps in that area, and so that's what we use, to find the best price for your home.
Okay. So, we have. So what happens with the pictures? I think that's my favorite part because I know when I go look at when I'm like browsing and thinking about, okay, maybe I'm ready to buy another house one day. The pictures, like I know sometimes like, and I tell you because I went with, not recently, but I went with my sister when she bought her house a few years ago. And I remember looking at like online the pictures. And then when we would get to the house, like it had nothing to look like what we were looking at.
So yes, pictures are everything. There are some agents that do it themselves and, to save that little bit extra money, but they're not as nice as if you do it professionally. And that is so much more because the pictures come out so much nicer, so much clarity. You can actually see everything that's going on. And well, you sometimes not me, sometimes other agents use like previous pictures from other listings or like sometimes they rented them. So they use those ones so they don't look like it. But I do encourage, all buyers, go and check out the house. Never put in an offer without seeing a property first because it's very important. But yeah, pictures, I always tell the agents spend a little bit more. It is kind of pricey depending on who you use and things like that. I use like a bigger company, so they don't charge me as much. But, they take really good pictures and I'm happy with them.
Yeah, no, I'm telling you, like there was, it's interesting how technology has even improved so much, like with the pictures. And then now I think they even use like AI and they're like stage the house if it's empty. Like if you already moved out and you're selling your house, there's like different options. But I think they have to like kind of notify you, right? Like that, you're using AI for like,
Virtual
the staging
staging.
or stuff like that.
Yeah, so in those pictures, when they post them on MLS or Zillow or whatever, they'll have like a little logo. They should. That says virtual staging. Because that way when you go into the home, you're not going to see those things, but you'll see them in the picture. Because sometimes it helps like certain clients to visualize like where the furniture goes, what does that look like in pictures and things like that.
And there is actually some homes that get staged,
Yes.
right? At least to help people, like if it's an empty house, to help them look at, visualize what the house could look like potentially.
Yeah, no. And sometimes people just leave their old furniture behind. One of our clients that we helped last year, William in Buckeye, they left him everything. They left him all the furniture. They left him everything outside, a hot tub. So he was super lucky, super happy with them. I think the only thing they took were the TVs.
I know.
But they left everything else, all the rooms, dining room, kitchen. So yeah.
That one was a really good deal that they got in that house. Like they got all the furniture. They didn't have to worry about having to fill up their house because it already came with everything. And that's when we talk about, that it's a buyer's market. Things like that sometimes happen, not all the time, but they got lucky and one of the few people that were able to get that.
They had benefit, definitely. They were super excited.
Yep. Okay. Where are we at, Monica?
Just
what
so
else?
the
What are
last
we
thing
missing?
is basically like navigating offers. As when you sell your home, you as the seller, because I have this question too when people ask like, oh, if I get an offer, how does that work? Do you accept? I'm like, no, I cannot. You as the seller have to accept the offer. when an offer comes in, we're going to review everything. We're going to review, their purchase price, if they want a home warranty, any kind of fees that's going to affect the numbers that I gave you when we came in for the for the seller consultation. And that way you see what you're going to net and if it works out for you. But one thing I will say is, greed does play a big part in, home selling. Recently I had two properties on the market from the same seller. We got them under contract pretty fast, and the comps were right. And that's why they went, under contract within 2 weeks. But he felt like he could get more, and, now those homes are on the market with another agent and they're just there.
And I think it's because a lot of people remember that, I think it was maybe like 3 or 4 years ago that the home prices went up. And I want to say maybe it wasn't 3 or 4 years ago. I think it was like more 5 or 6 years ago during COVID when rates got lowered. And then the prices for our home or value increased like significantly. And right now we're not in that market. Like right now the houses, the prices have adjusted. And I think that's why a lot of sellers are wanting to be in that position of where their house was worth maybe $50,000, $75,000 more, but we're not there. Like right now, at least to be able to get that much, it's not. But we are seeing that there are a lot of houses that still have a lot of equity in them, that they're still going to get, a lot of money back when they sell their property. So, it's still a good market for you to sell. Like if that's something that, they need to do or want to do. So it's not like you're losing.
Right. And that's what it comes down to. But again, like I said, at the end of the day, as a real estate professional, we work for the seller. So at the end of the day, they have the ultimate decision to make.
Yeah.
Whether or not they want to, proceed or not. But that's kind of like how home selling really works. So that's just like a quick little overlay. So I just wanted to review that, this episode. But then I wanted to lead back into the episode 2 and just kind of do a little bit more, but in English this time, because there was a lot of questions that we had from our English-speaking audience, which I love. And so I just wanted to, reiterate with Patty, about, the difference in the FHA versus conventional, down payment, and all of that stuff.
Very well. So yes. So if you are looking to buy a house, if you're someone that says, what do I need to do to purchase, or, what's out there for me to help me? As a first-time home buyer, there are programs out there that help you purchase a home with a low down payment. A lot of people get confused with being a first-time home buyer and automatically getting help, right? Like they think they're going to get some help. So there are down payment assistance programs that help you with your down payment, and you don't always have to be a first-time home buyer. You can already have owned a home, but the important part is your credit. I think a lot of people think that it's not important, or maybe they were in a position where they didn't take care of their credit, and that's what we tell people a lot of the times. Like if you want to buy a house, you need to apply. Like you need to reach out to us. We can get your application started, and we'll take a look at your credit. If your credit's not the greatest, then we'll help you. We'll help you fix it. So then, in order for you to qualify as a first-time home buyer, the minimum credit score that you need is a 580. Like if you're in a 580, yes, you qualify, but you might have different requirements versus someone that has a higher credit score. That's why we always try to, meet with you and go over all that so that we can make a plan for you. Not because someone said, no right away means that you won't qualify. It's always, maybe not right now, but, once you do these steps, then you will qualify. So with the first buyer programs, the minimum down payment that you can qualify for could be, depending on your credit score, could be 3%, and that's with a conventional loan. Conventional loans usually, are going to want a stronger buyer, somebody with stronger credit scores, so that you can qualify at that 3%. But we do have clients that are taking care of their credit, paying all their debt on time. They don't have any collections, and that's what we look at with someone that's going for a conventional loan. And sometimes people, with FHA loans, they could qualify, like I said, with a 580. And I have done loans for people that have been below the 600 mark, so between 580 and 600. But those people maybe make more money. They have, very low
More reserves.
and yes, definitely you're going to need reserves. So reserves are savings. Sometimes, depending on your credit score, it's gonna ask you for maybe 2 months of your mortgage payment to have in savings, or 3 months worth of savings. So if you are someone that has that lower credit score and you want to buy, and it's going to take you a little longer to maybe get that score higher, then you can have the savings, and also it'll want less like debt to income. So then it'll want you to have less debt in your application.
Right. And everything just depends on what you see once you do the application.
Yeah.
And that's why we encourage, clients that come in to do it so we can fully see what it is that they need.
Yeah, but definitely minimum, and that's what we say. Minimum is 580. We'll go over your plan. We'll go over what we need, and then as long as you go through what we ask you for, then like I said, we have helped people in with those credit scores purchase a home.
Closing costs. So closing, just a little bit, again, like just to like reiterate it, but in English, like, buyer's closing cost again, because again, that's a big question that, they ask, like, what all do I need in order to purchase a home? Because there's a lot of marketing out there. Just like, oh, $500 will get you a house. Yes, it will, but that's not everything that's involved with purchasing a home. And I'm very thorough when I talk with my clients, and I'm like, hey, it's a down payment plus closing costs. But in those closing costs, a lot of times what they don't understand is that a buyer's agent fee is part of the buyer's closing costs. Now, we negotiate that, with the sellers to pay that. But that is part of their fee on top of their other closing costs, which is lending fees, title fees, and anything else that falls within those lines. Because sometimes, we're depending on how much we're able to negotiate, we're able to cover, sometimes HOA and other things like that. So that definitely helps. But yeah, so that's why I just put, closing costs just one more time.
Okay, very well. And so a lot of people too, a lot of people don't know where to start or don't know what they need to apply to buy a house. And it's actually really simple. Like, it's not that complicated, and it really shouldn't be. So usually once you apply, you're gonna need the to meet with a lender, and then or a mortgage loan officer, which that's me over here. And you're gonna need I usually ask for your ID. I want to make sure that I have your spelling correct, that I have your date of birth, and just other little things that I need for the application from your ID. And then we'll ask for, a month worth of, if you work W-2, you get a W-2 at the end of the year, we're going to ask for a month worth of paycheck stubs, and then W-2s for the last 2 years, and then bank statements for the last 2 months. That's the basics. Depending on what we see from that, once we review it, then we might need additional things. But again, that's the basic. And then we're also able to use self-employment income if you're self-employed for you to qualify. So not because you're self-employed doesn't mean that you can't buy a house. You can still qualify for these programs, but we're going to base it off of what you report on your income.
And that's one thing too. Didn't mean to interrupt you, but when you're self-employed and you do, obviously we do profit and loss, right? I'm self-employed. So it's very, very important that if you think of that you might be buying a home the following year, to talk with the lender, because, sometimes losses, they hurt, when you try to buy a home. Yeah. And that's just one thing I want to, talk about, because we've had a couple people that come in and their losses were just too high, unfortunately. So, I mean, if your losses are losses, then, that's what it is. But I think too, like, before you do it, talk with a loan officer and see, how that would affect you that year if you're trying to purchase a home.
Yeah. And we use your taxes when we're talking about these programs for first-time home buyers. There are other programs that we work with that maybe you don't want to use your taxes, and we can get into that on a different topic. But right now, for first-time home buyers, if you want to purchase a home with the lower interest rate, with the lower down payment, then and you're self-employed, then we'll use your taxes. And then, like Monica said, call us before you're going to file the next year, so we can see where you're look at. Sometimes if you're self-employed, you could qualify with 1 year worth of taxes. Sometimes we need to, just depending on the program too that we're using. FHA is going to require 2 years worth of self-employment taxes. So then if your credit's not that strong, then we're going to go FHA and we're going to do 2 years worth of taxes. And then we'll do an average of what your net was for the year, or your profit was for the year. And then from there, we're also able to use, because a lot of people don't know that they can use these types of incomes. Like we can use Social Security if you're receiving child support. And then child support's usually for the following at least 3 years. They have to be getting the child support in order for us to be able to use it. Same thing with spousal support. If you get retirement and things like that too, we can use that type of income to help you qualify. And then from there, like I said, once we review that, then we might need extra little things, but not until we know, like I'll be able to tell you exactly what I'm missing or what I need to review. But once we have that, and let's say, your credit's good, and a lot of people think that they're not ready, that they don't qualify. And then when they come in, they actually do. Like they have, enough income to qualify for a house, their credit's ready, they don't have a lot of debt. Or we do have people that have a lot of debt, but they have enough income and they still qualify. And then the other thing too is your credit. I like to talk about that a lot because a lot of people think that because their credit's not perfect, that they don't qualify. And you don't need perfect credit to qualify. There's, like I said, FHA helps people that don't have the best credit qualify it and get into a home. So then if you have collections, if you have, you've filed for bankruptcy, you can qualify. If you file for bankruptcy, you have, depending on the program, you would have to wait either a year or two, depending, to be able to buy. But like I said, if you have collections, if you've been late, you can still buy a house. We would have to look at it and see where you're at and see if you qualify. But we always tell people you're not going to know unless you don't try or unless you don't ask.
No, yeah, absolutely. And then that's going to lead us into, a couple of our stories, because we're going to, reiterate too, again, about the ITIN programs and what that looks like, but also give a little bit more information about that. Because, my husband, is Mexican, but my kids are no sabo kids, so they don't know Spanish. So, if you're trying to speak to them, they're not going to understand. But the same thing is just to get, that communication out there and that awareness about the ITIN programs and also the benefits too, because we have, parents that came in that were ITIN, but their sons have socials. So go ahead, Patty, tell them how that works.
So if you don't know what an ITIN is, the ITIN is your identification tax number. That identifies someone that doesn't have a social here in the United States, that so that they can file taxes. So then we have programs for people that have their ITIN that we can qualify them, but sometimes they don't qualify because those programs require a higher down payment. So that's where we come into play, where sometimes, you have adult children, because the minimum age for you to qualify for any home loan, it doesn't matter what program we're using, it's 18 years old. So then sometimes we have families that, help each other out, and the kids are the ones that are qualifying for them to be able to purchase a home. So in the United States, you don't have to be a resident. You don't have to be a U.S. citizen to be able to purchase property here in the United States. So we have a lot of people that migrate here from different countries, and they purchase houses. So like I said, sometimes they don't qualify because it does require a higher down payment, and we're able to help them because the kids, are working. They graduated from high school. We're able to use that high school. The high school
transactions.
Their high school history, like they graduated from high school, so we're able to use that as part of like their work history, but it's like schooling.
Yeah,
so
high school transcripts. That's what it is.
Okay, yes. So as long as they graduated and they're working like right out of high school, we're able to use their income now. Also, if let's say they're 20 and they graduated from high school, but they're going to school, to college, and let's say that they're still going, but now they're working, we're able to use that history too. It doesn't have to be just work history. And then this is the part two where we come into play that a lot of people think that maybe they don't qualify, is because a lot of the times we have people that come here, they work with their ITIN, and then they end up getting their Social Security. They end up getting either a worker's permit, or they end up applying for their resident card, and then they're approved. So that now they're working with, their new social. And they're able to buy two now, and now it opens up to these programs that we can help them with for first-time home buyers. So FHA, conventional, they're able to qualify too with those loans, and we're able to use that work history that they were working with their ITIN to qualify now with their social. So it doesn't have to be them working the 2 years with that Social Security card, because like it can be used with that other one too.
Right. And something that you taught me this past couple of months, that we're helping a couple that we've been talking with for 2 years, that the husband now has his social. And I wasn't aware, but he can transfer his credit from his ITIN to his actual social. So that way he's already like where he was at previously. So that helps too.
Yeah. Because usually they'll look into that too, like to make sure that there's not like any additional debt that maybe didn't transfer over to their new social and things like that. But there is, you can, or even if, let's say that you are a U.S. citizen now, and or a resident or whatever, and you were working in a different country, we can use that work history too for you to qualify. There's a lot of people that think they have to wait 2 years to work with their Social Security card, and that's not the case. Like, we're able to use your work history from whichever country you came from, and now you're here, you're working, and we can use that for you to qualify. And so,
Yeah. So yeah, it's just reiterating, because a lot of times with the ITIN programs, they want 15 to 20% down, but sometimes this is a good alternative for those that don't have it.
yeah. And we're super, super good about going back and forth and jumping around, because, that's how our brains work. At least mine. I'm always like all over the place.
No, mine too. I'm just like, okay, I got it. Next.
So we have our notes, and we're like, okay, what did we talk about already? Oh my gosh, but no. But seriously, no, we love what we do. We love helping people, or at least, I love being able to guide people, because a lot of the times, like we said, people aren't ready like right away. And then we have the ones that are ready right away. But I love it. Like, I love being able to say, look, being that cheerleader of like, yes, you can do it. Like, what, and I always tell people too, like when I bought my house, I wasn't ready when I applied the first time. Like, so I know what it feels like for them to tell you like, okay, well, you're not ready just yet, but you have to do this. And I had to work on my credit, and I had to work on paying debt down so that I could qualify. But I did it. Like, I did my plan. I achieved what I needed to do within, a few weeks. And then, and I want to say it was in August when I started looking, or not looking, but when I applied. And then I was once I did my plan, like I was closing on my home by that November. Mm-hmm. So like that took like what, like 2.5 months or so, I think, maybe 3 months. But like, you can do it. Like, it's okay to not be ready just yet, but have a plan.
No, absolutely. And oh my gosh, my throat's so dry today. But this is going to take me back to the ITIN parents with the children that have social. And this is something that I'm going to talk throughout the whole podcast, that it's very, very, very important who you work with. Because the ITIN parents, right, they've gone to like 3 different lenders, and every lender turned them away. And so, when we finally got in touch and we had the buyer consultation with them, they said like they were so discouraged, like they didn't want to talk to us because they thought we were going to be the same as everybody else. And, after we had the conversation with them, honestly, it's just the sons having a little bit more income in order for them to qualify. They were so grateful, and they're like, you guys gave us hope. And, that's one of the feedbacks that I had gotten too from last week's episode was like, I watched your podcast, and they're like, we love that you guys are saying it's not a no. It's just like, it's not right now, but it can happen. And they're like, you're giving a lot of people hope. And I think that's very important, because if you truly want to buy a home and it's something that you want to do, you can do it. You can do it with the right team behind you, with the right people supporting you, and making sure that you're doing what you need to do. And so like, we've had a lot of people too, I know I said this in the previous episodes, that have been turned down, but when they come to us, we give them the options, we tell them what they need to do, they get it done, and they become homeowners. And, like you said, we're like the cheerleaders because we want it to happen for them because it's exciting. It's truly exciting. First, somebody to be told no, 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 and then finally, here's your keys.
Yeah, it is. It's an amazing feeling. And like I always tell people, like, I love what I do. Sometimes some loans aren't super easy, but we we go through it, and it happens and they close. And being able to be part of that moment, it's one of the biggest transactions that people make. Like it is the biggest transaction that people make, is purchasing a home. And sometimes we get to see them purchase that first home. Sometimes we get to see them purchase that second home. And it's I love it. I love being able to do this and being able to be part of that.
It's not same. It's something that when people say like why you got into real estate, I talk a little bit mostly about family because I'm allowed to do my own schedule. But the other thing is I like helping people, right? Like I love being a buyer's agent more than a seller's agent, right? And it's nothing towards sellers or anything, but I just love decorating. I love when I go out and give a gift basket, thinking about them and handing them the keys because again, a lot of people thought it wasn't possible. We're making dreams come true.
We are, Monica. But no, yeah, it's great, and we're super appreciative, and for the people that we work with, the people that we've helped, the people that keep sending us, people, because we get a lot of referrals from the people that we already helped, and that talks a lot about the way that we work. So again, thank you, and I don't know if
Absolutely. And no, I think that's it for episode 3. We just wanted to go a little bit over the home buying, a little bit in English for the feedback, and for our clients too. Definitely appreciate everybody and the feedback. Keep it coming. We love it. Believe me, we love to adapt and learn. But I mean, next episode, I think we'll talk a little bit about pre-quals in English, what that means, what that looks like.
More thorough of going through it, because we did talk about it in the last 2 episodes. Mm-hmm. So we want to do it in English, and today it was just super quick and basic, I think.
Yeah, just a little introduction, kind of switching it, but that doesn't mean we won't do more in Spanish. That's something we're still trying to figure out, like how many, like when to switch on and off, but we're truly grateful for everybody, to everybody that stayed to the end of this podcast. Don't forget to, like, share, and subscribe. We definitely appreciate it. Leave comments as well, any questions that anybody has.
Very well. Thank you so much, and we will see you next week.
Bye.
Bye.